Hello, welcome back, Frost fans. This is a 2 episode week. It's a big week. Another edition of Frost Bites. I am super excited to be joined by Dylan, who covers the Montreal Victoire for the Ice Garden. Dylan, how is my Victoire pronunciation, and how are you?
Beautiful. I mean, you've got to be a Quebec One native. This is perfect French right there, and I'm good. I'm good. It's been a bit of a long day. I'm just coming back from practice now. It's been a long week. I went to the wrong arena this morning, so I don't tell my bosses. It was a mistake, but I didn't miss any of the practice because I was so early. This is a good lesson for you young journalists. Show up
There,
early. Might be at the wrong venue.
there you go.
Or
That's
distracted.
Yeah, good to be there early. I've gone into the wrong elevator before at my first time at the Frost practice rink, so it happens to everyone. How was practice? What any big insight to share here off the top?
Yeah, practice was good. You can kind of tell there's just a lot of confidence in this Montreal group right now. They kind of all they all kind of echo that sentiment. They're just really excited to get going. It's been about a week off now, and they just want to kind of kick things off. Nothing crazy. No injuries really to report right now. Obviously, we didn't speak to Poulin today. I think she's kind of shying away a little bit from media right now and just kind of focusing on getting herself ready for playoffs because she was obviously out for a while. Um, but yeah, sentiment in the group is that they're excited. We'll get more into. There was a lot of special teams work, so we'll get more into that later. But yeah, exciting stuff.
Yeah, I talked to Abby Hustler yesterday for an interview, and it was a similar vibe. I feel like for the Frost, I was at practice on Tuesday too. Like I think the week off has been nice, but I think they are also ready to go and ready to get the playoffs started.
Yeah, and for a team like Montreal, I think they're a little sick of the narratives, which I would completely understand and sympathize with. But like when you've been asked for a whole season, okay, well last year you didn't advance for the first round, year before you didn't advance for the first round. Like how are you going to do it now? It's like okay, we've answered that question. We feel confident that we can do it. So now just let us go out there and do it. So I get the sense that they're just ready to get out there. You know.
Yeah, I would imagine, and I think for Minnesota that question was, Montreal picked you guys. Like, is that a little extra motivation? We heard that question asked a number of times throughout the week, and either everyone is a really good actor, or the response was basically, we got to play, we got to play them. We feel confident, we're ready to go. So,
But in
um,
that room, it's bulletin board material. I mean, come on. They,
yeah,
they, they think they
I
can
think
beat you.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, it'll be fun to get into this a little bit because I think the Frost feel confident. And I mean, how could they not with some of their playoff success? But it'll be interesting to get into a little bit. Maybe just to start, like super quick, like for Frost fans who maybe haven't been following Montreal's season quite as closely. Could you, just a real brief kind of overview of Montreal, how they found success this season, that kind of thing?
Sure. Yeah, I think the Victoire are an interesting one because after expansion, there was a whole lot of question marks after like teams had a lot of losses. But Montreal's a team that if you build your core around Enrene Desbiens net, one of the best goalies in the world, Mary-Philippe Poulin, obviously one of the best hockey players maybe ever, and Laura Stacey, you have that trio, right? It's such a solid trio to build your team around. They were able to keep veteran defender Aaron Ambrose as well. So there's a lot of expectations on this group. They really didn't. They had such strong regular season campaigns year 1 and 2, and they just really didn't achieve their desired results through playoffs. They only have one playoff win through 2 seasons so far, through the first 2 seasons. So a lot of expectations. They had some big kind of signings and trade, bringing in some players in the offseason. They brought in Abby Rock from New York. They brought in Jay Danny Loungy. They brought in Cheyenne Darkangelo. So it was a lot of expectations on this group, and early results were a little mixed. And I think four of their regulation losses, I wrote it down somewhere, but they didn't. They had like 6 or 7 regulation losses in the season. 4 of them came in the first 8 games of the season. And there was just a lot of talk from Coach Corey Chevry. She was really like stand by her group and just kind of talking about, this is a process of growth this season. Like we're not worried about these early season results. She's a big players coach, right? So she really sticks by her players, and it's paid off. So the early season results were a little mixed, but then since the Olympic break, they've just been lights out. I think they've only lost one. They've only lost one game in regulation since January. So it really speaks to just what they've done, especially that last stretch after the Olympic break was without Poulin, one of their best players, and Ambrose missed a big chunk of games. And just important context as well for Frost fans who might not follow Nicole Gosling, their rookie of the season. They picked her in the first round. She's really stepped up. She's kind of an Ambrose in the making. They play very similar games. They both went to Clarkson. And she really has just emerged. She's really, through the last second half of the season, she has just been probably one of the best defenders in the league. So it's just been impressive to watch. And yeah, Montreal's they've really put it together through the second half.
Yeah, if you had to maybe distill down, I think, just from an outside perspective, that success after the Olympics without Poulin was really impressive. What if you had to distill that down just into one or two things that has led to that success post Olympics? What would you characterize it as?
I think it's pretty simple. It's two things to me. It's the goaltending. That goaltending's always been strong, but Renee has just been she's playing her best hockey so like recently through the league. Like she's lights out right now. But to me especially, it's the depth scoring that's really been stepping up for Montreal. I think that was the biggest problem through year 1 and 2. Like Poulin and Stacey are unbelievable on the ice, and their chemistry is so good. They led the team in scoring both years. But beyond them, there just wasn't that consistency in getting scoring from third, fourth line, even really the second line. So this year, Poulin and Stacey are still playing obviously very well, but in Poulin's absence, we just saw a lot more players really step up and emerge on the score sheet. And I believe the Victoire finished with the most different, like, unique goal scorers of any team in the league, which really speaks to where they were a year ago, where like 60% of their points came from Poulin and Stacey. Not exactly 60%, but you know what I'm saying? A majority. Yeah. They were doing the production.
Yeah.
Now they're really getting contributions from across their roster. They're deeper. They're a bit heavier on the bottom six, so they can just push a bit more and they can grind out those difficult games. So that's been the difference maker, and that will be a big difference maker for them come playoff time.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when we're thinking about ways that this team is different from past teams that have had less playoff success. I mean, the depth scoring, being able to get contributions from all throughout the lineup, especially in playoff hockey, can be so important. And yeah,
I think that's what Minnesota's done pretty well, right? Like to me, that's one of their biggest X factors in winning those 2 Walter Cups has just been they can roll out 4 lines, and on any given night, they can expect production from different places. So I think that's why this year it's going to be a really interesting first round series, right? Because Minnesota still has the league's best offense, but Montreal is right there with them. And actually, it was funny today in practice, one of the reporters asked Erin Ambrose about, like, this is kind of like the league's best offense versus the league's best defense. And then she answered the question, but she also kind of took a crack. She was like, well, I think we're a pretty good offense too. So, give us some credit there, right? So I think that it's going to be a really interesting matchup in that sense. And I'm looking forward to watching that one.
Yeah, bad news for the Frost. That league's best defense is also not that far behind you in offense too. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I thought it would be fun to maybe talk some keys to this series, or kind of, things that we think will be very important. I've got a couple written down. I know you've got a couple. Maybe as the higher seed, you get to pick. You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Making me make the choice, just like the Victoire. No, you kick us. You kick us off.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do it. And this works because I think it relates to what we were just talking about defense. I think the biggest key for the Frost, just looking at the 4 games that they've played this season against Montreal, they've got to find a way to score goals. They weren't able to do it in the regular season. I know a lot of teams, struggle to score against Montreal, but Montreal outscored them 12-3 in the regular season and 8-2 at 5-on-5, which Minnesota was one of the best offensive teams at 5-on-5 this season. So really struggled to score goals at 5-on-5. Minnesota sort of outshot Montreal. Montreal outshot Minnesota kind of across the board in those matchups at 5-on-5 as well. And Minnesota wasn't a team that would get a ton of shots. They would often be outshot, but I think, interestingly, especially against Montreal and against Boston, 2 teams that can really kind of control Minnesota in the neutral zone, Minnesota would get in these game scripts where they would be very perimeter, and you would kind of look up in the third period and Minnesota would have 12 shots and wouldn't really have a ton of scoring opportunities because they're kind of looking to break these teams down that are quite good defensively. And so it'll be really interesting to see how Minnesota kind of tries to play this, and maybe if they kind of just try to simplify things, put more pucks on Debian, and see if they can find ways to beat her with with maybe some more greasy goals instead of trying to break Montreal down.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like playoffs are a new animal, right? And it's kind of hard to imagine that Montreal's going to blank Minnesota for a third straight game. I mean, it's possible, but it's just
Right.
against a team like Minnesota, it's a hard thing to do. And so I think that the key for Montreal is just keeping up those defensive successes they've had without necessarily the pressure of needing the result of like a shutout, or because Montreal can score goals the other way.
Yeah.
But I think that like they've just had so much success in like kind of frustrating those offenses, like you've talked about. They had last time I checked, they were taking the most shots per game of any team in the league, but they were also allowing the fewest shots against, and that's partly because they're just blocking so many shots. They have such big bodies on their blue line. So I think it's kind of like that's something they've talked about a lot. Like Corey Chevry's talked about a lot. It's just sticking to that game plan, like not trying to switch anything up too much, but also just being willing and able to adapt. Because Minnesota is not a team that's going to be happy with the fact that they've been shut out twice, right? And they're watching game tape probably all week, trying to figure out different ways to solve Desbiens. So they're definitely I'm anticipating them to get a little creative, and I'm curious to see which players can kind of step up to that challenge of taking on one of the best goalies in the league.
Yeah, totally. And I'll say too, like at least at practice on Tuesday, the Frost are kind of saying all the right things about like, head coach Ken Cleese talked about we need to get more pucks on Desbiens. We need to test her early, test her often. Taylor Heisey was talking about, shooting to get 10 shots a period, hopefully, and that kind of being the goal for them to get more pucks on net. So they're definitely saying the right things in that sense. But it'll be interesting to keep an eye on how they kind of come out and how they try to create offense going forward against Montreal. Right, because they've been shut out 2 games in a row.
Well, if I could follow that up with my first key for Montreal.
Do it.
Because it got me thinking about, I think one of the biggest things for Montreal is that they've been so effective at shutting down Minnesota, but probably their biggest weakness is just that they're the most penalized team in the league. And it's funny to call it a weakness because they also have the best power or penalty kills, in the league. So it's not necessarily easy to take advantage of that. But if it's one place that Minnesota can capitalize on, Minnesota has the best power play in the league. So that was a big topic of conversation at practice today. They ran special teams for about 40 minutes. They were just running 5-on-4s, 5-on-3s, and running the penalty kill, running the power play. So I think that they're really anticipating that special teams battle. Aaron Ambrose talked about kind of like series are won on the special teams. And I think this is a great example where for Minnesota, they have the league's best power play, Montreal, league's best penalty kill. So when that matchup comes, for Montreal, it's about sticking to that. And, being able to if you have to take a penalty, being able to follow through with a solid penalty kill. But Minnesota, like I think if they want to score goals, if they want to solve Desbiens, those will be the times to capitalize and find those mistakes in Montreal, wear them down if you get those power play opportunities.
Yeah, special teams is going to need to be good for Minnesota because, like you said, like I don't expect Montreal to shut out Minnesota again, but I also don't think Minnesota is going to have a ton of opportunities to score, and that special teams is going to have to be good. It's interesting to hear you say that because I've sort of thought about it from the opposite way. Minnesota's penalty kill was the worst in the league, and by a margin, if I remember correctly, and again, Montreal league's best penalty kill and also second best power play. So again, score and do both. And I talked to Kelly Panic on Tuesday, and I was kind of focused on the penalty kill. But one of the things she mentioned that I think is relevant here is just in a series like this, you're just playing the same team over and over again. And it's a chance to really hone in penalty kill, but also power play. Just because you're playing this same team over and over. And I think, like you're saying, I think it'll be really the team that makes the best adjustments and I think is best able to frustrate the other on the penalty kill, I think will find the most success.
It's hard. Like if you have a great penalty kill, you can't shut a team down forever, right? Like they're gonna break through at some point. I mean, unless you pull off some miracle. But the thing is that a power play with those opportunities, like you're going to break through. And Montreal has been known to take some poor penalties. Like they are a team. They even talked about today. I mean, Abby Rock is someone who's been very open about. He takes a lot of penalties, but he's been open about kind of being questioning the officiating, I should say, trying to find the line of like what they can, what kind of physicality they can bring. And I think we can obviously expect that Minnesota and Montreal is going to be a very physical series, but it's not hard to imagine that there are some times that Montreal might take a bad penalty. And Corey Chevry talked today about they expect penalties, right? It's going to happen in a playoff game. So she said she has no problem with her team taking penalties as long as they're playing physical, they're playing smart, and they're not taking bad penalties. But it has happened this year. You've seen a couple times that Montreal late in games has conceded minors or even major penalties, and that can't happen against a team like Minnesota. I think a really kind of to bring back a key from early in the season. Obviously, Minnesota was shut out twice. We love to talk about it, but those first two games against Minnesota, they were really close. And Minnesota had late goals in both those. Montreal had a later goal in one of them to force overtime and managed to find the overtime win in both. But we're talking about this team as if Montreal's undefeated against Minnesota, but it could very easily be like a 2-2 series this season. So once playoff hockey comes, those overtime games come, you don't really know what's going to happen. So in terms of protecting leads late, you can't be taking dumb penalties, and that's just something that they're going to have to watch for. But for Minnesota, it's a key as well that if those opportunities come, they're going to have to capitalize.
Totally. And it makes me think just listening to that, like how this series is officiated is going to play a huge role in what it looks like if they let him play and it is physical, or if we start to get a lot of penalties, that special teams battle is going to be massive. Another key for Minnesota. This is always a key for Minnesota. Goaltending. When I had Maya on, we were going to do it at the same time. Goaltending. Yeah, I mean, the thing that is most interesting to me about this is Maddie Rooney has actually had her best regular season of the three this year. She's had a .921 save percentage in the regular season, and I still don't feel super confident. I would expect, sort of coming off her best regular season performance, to feel a little bit more confident in the Minnesota goaltending situation. But I really think it's the biggest key for them, and it's going to make or break this series for them. The thing that has been interesting in the past is Rooney specifically has sort of gotten this playoff boost or playoff boost to her save percentage, I guess I would call it. She's really been able to be better when the games matter. Last year, she had a .907 in the regular season, which became a .932 in the playoffs. 2024, she had a .915, which became a .948 in the playoffs. So that's one of those elements where, she's had her best regular season. You imagine if she can turn her game up in the playoffs, it could get even better. And I think she'll need to. For this team to stay in it. Minnesota has not been able to limit shots against like they were last year, obviously with the changeover on defense. And Rooney has been better in the regular season. And as a tandem, the Frost goaltenders have been better this year. But I think they'll need to be even better in the playoffs. I think goaltending is going to be really important. I will also just say Nicole Hensley has been not quite as good this season. Rooney's been better down the stretch, too. Hensley started really strong. Rooney's been better down the stretch. I would imagine she would get the start in game one. And I would think, unless it's a poor performance, it would be Rooney again in game two. But it will be worth keeping a close eye on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this is like it's been a conversation every season for the Minnesota Frost when they head into the playoffs, and yet they seem to win. They win the finals every year. So it hasn't chewed them out too bad. And she is a goalie who really steps up her game. I think it's hard. These conversations come up when you have a goalie like Anne-Renee Desbiens on the other end of the ice, who
Totally.
we just know is someone who just she starts at a solid baseline and she plays just through like that kind of so consistently. You know what you kind of expect from her. And I think on the flip side for Montreal, what I'm really looking at with this kind of Minnesota goaltending versus Montreal's offense battle is that even though Montreal's offense has been so solid this year, there's the fear always that they could go quiet come playoff time. You know, we see teams like across hockey that this happens. Of course, it's only been 2 years, but for me, a key on the counter side is for Montreal to strike early and kind of come out guns a-blazing in this first game and get a few goals on the board. Because I can't imagine if they get shut out or they get held to one in that first game, I think that's a huge mental that'll kind of mess you up mentally because you have these narratives and now they're starting to seep in that maybe we are a team that has trouble in the playoffs. So I think like solving Rooney early will be kind of a key for the team. And I think on the counter side, knowing that Montreal can have such a powerful offense, Minnesota really does need Rooney to be the very best version of herself because there's no situation where they win a series with Anne-Renee Desbiens on one side and Maddie Rooney not playing well on the other side.
Yeah, I think of a couple of big games against Boston, kind of down the stretch for playoff seeding, and like you're saying, like there wasn't a moment where the goaltending was terrible or the goal was incredibly soft and it sort of took the game away. But there are moments in games I feel like where especially in a couple games against Boston, where shots went in, and who you're playing against. You've just scored 2 goals to tie a game, and it really just kind of shifts momentum because the team that you're playing against and how good they are defensively. And yeah, so for this series, like you're saying, like I really think it's going to need to be the best version of Matty Rooney in the net for the Frost. I'm curious too, just quickly, you mentioned some of that Montreal getting scoring from somewhere outside the Stacey Poulin Rock line, and starting fast, scoring on Rooney. Are there any, or who are a couple forwards, on maybe that second or third line that have are big threats to score or have really produced for Montreal this season?
Yeah, I think it's a big mixed bag. One player that I'm just keeping an eye on is Haley Skamura. She
Yeah,
kind of has just really elevated her game this season. She's at like, I think she finished 16 points. She had 8 goals, and she's just someone who I think she matches up against a team like Minnesota really well because she can just really crash the net. She really gets
yeah,
those gritty, like messy playoff type goals where it's just you just need to bury one and she's there. She finds a way to get there, and that's why she's really elevated her game. So she's playing really well there. Cheyenne Darkangelo, she's been a bit of a mixed bag this year, but I think she's someone that still has something in her to like elevate her game a little bit more. And then you look at like a player like Malinkova or Lundblom, who just like they again have been like up and down through the season, but they are players who just they're fun to watch, and I think that they're players who can step up and surprise you. I think that my point being that you kind of get goals from any different place on a given night from Montreal. Like Danny Landry only has 2 in the season, but they come at crucial moments. And then not forwards, but I turn to a player like Nicole Gosling, who's now on a six game point streak. She has
yeah.
like 14 points in 15 games since the Olympic break. She's just, as I said, really elevated her game. So a lot of that like offense is going to come from a player like Gosling pushing from the blue line and helping organize those plays.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy you brought up Malinkova. I'm a big Gopher fan here in St. Paul, so I got to watch her last year, and just like a prototypical playoff player. I feel like so skilled, but also gritty. Goes to the front of the net, makes plays. Like yeah, a lot of options, a lot of options for Montreal
They have those,
offensively and
yeah,
scoring
they have
goals.
those different kind of there's different pieces, but everyone brings the same kind of approach and mentality and hard work to every shift. And I think that's there's no one I can point to other than Poulin Rock and Stacy, who I'm like a betting man thinking they're gonna be the game changer on offensively on the score sheet. But I think that's a testament to the team that how far they've come in their depth. That I could really see goals coming from like a player like Murphy or a player like Greg, like stepping up. Even a player like Labelle, her and Dubois have come in clutch at really important moments and like on that third line or fourth line with Danny Landry. So yeah, I'm just interested to see kind of who steps up, and there's a lot of players making their playoff debut as well for Montreal. So seeing like who kind of elevates their game come playoff time.
Yeah, totally. I think it's one of the ways that these teams are very similar in that sense of like obviously have the high end skill up front, but then also so many different players that can chip in and also score points and make plays.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's end with some predictions because that's always fun. What? Give me a prediction in terms of who's moving on in this series and just a brief why.
Okay, well, I put in our series prediction, which will be going out later tonight or tomorrow morning. Stay tuned. Oh, I don't know. I don't know when this podcast is going out, but Friday or Saturday. Series predictions coming from the Ice Garden.
We shall see.
Montreal in 4. This is my bold prediction because I think here's the thing.
Let me make sure I don't choke on my water. I was just
I
drinking.
know
I'm just kidding.
it's more hard to say with a series like this because I could see 3 overtime games completely flipping on the script on whatever we try and predict. But I just think I feel from what I've seen from this season, Montreal just seems like a very complete team. And I even feel that if it comes to overtime games, they're the kind of team right now that can grind those wins out, and they know how to shut down Minnesota's offense. They know how to produce offensively. So I'm cautiously optimistic, 4 sounds like, it sounds like light work, but Ottawa did it to Montreal last year, so you never know what can be done. I'm interested to see if they can pull it off that quickly, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'm not that far off, I think, from you. I think this is the same prediction I had written, but I think it's Montreal, but I think it takes 5. Like I think Minnesota's going to figure out how to score. I think Matty Rooney is going to be better. I think the penalty kill will be, better for Minnesota and sort of keep Montreal in check. But I just really like Montreal's depth. I really like their ability to score like up and down their lineup. And then also in a situation like this, like I'm gonna ride with the goaltender that I think is best, and I think Rene Desbiens has been incredible. And you know, I'm gonna go with the team that has the better goalie, and in my opinion, I think she's certainly put up the track record for that. So I say Montreal in 5. So not that different from what
Have
you
you
thought.
have you seen though, like all season, the joke online amongst Victoire fans is like, "Dear reporters, stop predicting us to win things."
I haven't seen that.
It gets pretty exhausting. I kind of get it. Like everyone, Victoire are going to win the Walter Cup. Victoire are going to win the series. But it's hard. It's hard to bet against them every year, even though they keep losing in the first round. I mean, I say keep; it's been twice, but
Yeah,
it's hard to just look at this team and what they've accomplished this season and not feel confident that they can pull this off. But this is a bit of a cop out to say. I still do feel like it's such a flip of a coin for some of how these games are going to go with just overtime and everything. So we'll see.
totally.
We'll see.
Yeah, totally. And with a 5-game series too. I mean, it's 5 games, but it's not 7. It's
Yeah.
yeah. We shall see. Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited for it to get going. Dylan, thank you so much for being on here. You got any work that you want to shout out here before we come to an end?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Big fan of Frostbites. I think it's probably one of the top podcast names in the world. So, big fan. Follow me on the Nine Sports. I just put up an article. Interviewed Jade Downey Landry. She's very excited for her playoff debut. It's been a long one in the making for the Montreal native. So excited for her. She's going to be one to watch. I think she talked about how her game really matches playoff style. So I think she could be a bit of a wild card. She hasn't been crazy on the score sheet for Montreal this season, but I'm excited to see what she can do.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah. As always, follow the Nine Sports, subscribe, Ice Garden. Should be a great series. It'll be awesome. Thanks again, Dylan.
Thanks, Reid.